to another episode of Every Day is a New Day. I have another fantastic guest for you today. Her name is Marisha Williams, and she has some really powerful life stories and experiences to share with us today. And so I wanted to be able to share that with you because we can all learn from each other's stories, right? I love it. I love hearing people's stories. So with that said, hello and welcome, Marisha.
Hey, Kim. Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So I'm going to let you start off because you and I met, I guess getting close to maybe 2 years, somewhere in that ballpark. And you...
Has it been that long? 2 years? Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Okay. Something like that. Yeah.
I think it has actually, because I think it was like maybe January 2015-ish.
Yeah, probably. That sounds about. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Amazing. Time flies.
So life changes a lot in a couple years. Anywho, yeah.
So that's just it. Life changes dramatically in the snap of a finger at times.
Right.
I'm going to let you sort of direct this. You've got some stories, and what would you like to share with us today? What's coming up for you?
Well, when you first sent out the memo about this, I was in this place of how am I sharing this message? And as you know, I'm all over Facebook. Like that's my domain. That's where I live. And the stories that are moving people, the ones that people are in my inbox about, those are the kind of stories that I want to share with you and your audience today. So I'm just like everybody else that you work with. I mean, back in 2013, I had been working in banking for about 20 years.
Okay. And
I was really good at what I did. In fact, so good that I was like getting promotion after promotion. Life was like really moving. I was doing really, really well. And I was a teen mom. I had my son when I was 16 years old. And I was in school. I was in college immediately after that. But I never got to finish because life got hard and I needed to be at work. And then I found that I'm a really good worker. And so my life was all about being at work, all about being promoted, all about giving the best for my kid. And as things do, time went on, he grew up, and now all I had was that title. That's pretty much how I was living until I got to this place where I realized I really hated what I was doing. I mean, I absolutely hated what I was doing. It had changed so much, and I hated it. Well, as you know, law of attraction is a very, very real thing. Mm-hmm. And when you start hating something like that and you start putting out that kind of energy that's really negative, really self-defeating, things start to happen. So I got fired.
Oh,
and yeah, right. It was the end of something great for me because quite honestly, at that point, my kid's an adult. So I'm not his mom. I mean, I am, but not. He's an adult, he's grown, and he's gone. And now I didn't have that title. So I really didn't know who I was. Wow. And I fell into this, who am I? And what do I do next? How do I move on? And in the meantime, I had this relationship that was starting to fall apart. Things were just one after the next, just crumbling. And I found myself just really depressed. But at the same time, knowing that there was something else and there was a different way that I could be doing this. I didn't know what that way was, but I did know that there was something different because it couldn't be this. That could not be my story, you know?
Yes.
It couldn't be that all of a sudden everything was snatched away and I'm lost.
Nice.
So in the parking lot, the day that I lost the job, I feel like that's where I made a decision. I sat there in the parking lot and I knew that there were a couple of ways this thing could have gone. I could get really pissed off and make some really bad things happen because I've always said a bank's worst enemy is a former employee because I had all the codes, all the keys, all the access. So you start thinking because it was a really evil thing that happened the way that I got fired. So I'm in this place of feeling like I'm vindictive. I wanted to get revenge. And then I said, but that doesn't feel good. That just really didn't feel good. And so in that moment, in the parking lot, driving away from my job, I chose something else. Now, in the meantime, in the background, there's this friend of mine who had just introduced me to A Course in Miracles. And I had never heard of this thing. In fact, it had been about 3 months since she told me about this book study that she was going to start at the beginning of the year. This is December 26th, this day that I lost my job.
Okay. Oh my, you lost your job the day after the Christmas holiday.
The day after Christmas. Yeah, the day after Christmas, I lost my job.
Sorry.
So I know. So, and of course I'm in this, how could they do this the day after Christmas? You know, all that. So my friend had told me about A Course in Miracles, and it just so happened that the class that she was beginning was starting with the new year. So all of a sudden I found myself in this position where I've got time, so I can do it. So I participate in her class, and I'm getting through the textbook, not really digging a lot of the language, but the message was something that really sunk in for me. And then I started finding all these other teachers who were showing up, like Abraham Hicks showed up for me, and Neville Goddard showed up for me. And you know the lineup.
Yeah. You know what? Can we pause for a second?
Sure.
So, A Course in Miracles. Now, for anyone watching who isn't familiar with that, can you sort of sum up what that is? I know a little bit, but I studied it myself.
The book is A Course in Miracles is it's a book written by Helen Schucman. She was a scientist, so I'm not going to get too deep into how she received these messages. Bottom line is she wrote a book.
Okay.
And the book was channeled.
Okay.
For lack of a better phrase, the book was channeled, and the information within just really resonated with me.
Okay.
Basically, it's just a book that helps you to realize that you really do live in the center of this universe, that we really are connected as one with all things, with all people, and that there's this grand machine in operation that we're connected to. Okay, that's just the very brief.
Okay, thank you for that.
Snippet. Okay, so really, really small snippet. So it just helped me to figure out that I did have a place without those titles that I was so connected to. And not only did I have a place, but it was a place that was dynamic, that I had an opportunity to be something much bigger than I had been, and I could play bigger than I had played. So that was what opened my curiosity, and I started learning that there was a different way. And it's a good thing that happened, because immediately things changed so drastically. I mean, the boyfriend left, which meant all of a sudden not only am I unemployed, but I'm now responsible for all the financial responsibilities that had been shared.
Wow.
I'm going through the loss of the job, the loss of the relationship. Oh, and I had a pretty severe spinal injury that had been untreated for several years.
Oh.
Because I was a dedicated employee. I wasn't taken off.
Wow.
So I found myself at my absolute lowest. And long story short, I begged for a solution. I begged for some help, because I was in my deepest, darkest position. I'd never been in poverty before. I'd never experienced lack in that way. Now, I'd always lived kind of paycheck to paycheck, even though I was making, before I was fired, I was making more money than I had ever made before. But life was balancing in such a way that as I brought it in, it went right out. That's just kind of how I was living. So I found myself in this position of utter poverty. I mean, the kind of poverty where you have to be really careful about where you're parking, because you don't have enough to keep feeding the meter. Like, I was really down to coins. My life was down to coins. But I found a way to be really joyful in that place, because although I had no money, I had all the time in the world. I had so much time, and I had never had time before. I mean, I started working at 16 years old. And when I was in college the first time, I was in school, raising my kid, and working 7 days a week. I had 3 jobs. So time was such a luxury for me. It was such a huge luxury. So I decided to embrace that luxury, to embrace the fact that I had a lot of time. And I started studying. The law of attraction. I started studying just physics. Oh man, I started studying physics, quantum physics to be specific, and started really learning what authority I had on this planet. So, all in all, what that taught me was I really did have the key. I already had everything that I needed. It didn't feel like it because half the time I didn't know what I was going to eat. But I was grateful because I still had my home. I was grateful because I still had my family. So grateful for really good friends. And those people showed up in my life in a big way. They showed up powerfully. And I just clung to gratitude more than anything. So
it sounds like it. Well, I love how you said that you realized the authority you had in your own life. That's powerful.
Yeah, it really was, because I had no idea. Life had always happened to me. I didn't know that I had authority. I had been truly living a victim mentality. Everything was happening to me. I mean, I'm talking about all the way back to childhood. Everything was happening to me. I was not initiating anything. I wasn't proactive in anything.
What was that realization like? What was that awareness like as you're shifting from, oh my goodness, I've been a victim, to I actually have power? Even though all these things are happening, I have power. What was that process like for you, going from one to the other?
Oh my God, it was such a huge game changer for me. It made me feel like I had been living in some warped version of my life.
Wow.
You know, it was such a long time ago now. It's hard for me to even think in those ways anymore, because I've transformed my mind so much, and I've recognized my authority so much, and I've made so many miracles happen in my own life as a result of knowing my authority. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, about a year and a half into unemployment, mm-hmm. the house was in foreclosure.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's kind of how it goes, right? House was in foreclosure. Now, having been a banker, I was really meticulous about my money. Like, I knew about every penny. I knew where it was. I knew where it needed to be. I knew how it could earn for me. And so to be in this position where all of a sudden money was the biggest thorn in my side, it was a breaking experience.
Wow.
But to recognize that I was so much more than my money, and that my life was it was such a well-oiled machine, even without the money. People showed up for me. I mean, there was a time when I remember sitting at my dining room table thinking, what am I going to eat for dinner tonight? I have no idea. And then I said, you know what? Some ribs would be really good. I didn't know where this was coming from. I don't know, just imagining, just kind of playing with the idea. That would be so good. 2 hours later, my best friend shows up at my door with ribs. We didn't talk. We did not have a conversation, but that happened.
Awesome.
I'm the same girl who has opened my door and there's money on the ground. We could go on and on and on with stories, because my life is full of miraculous stories. So after that, so the house is in foreclosure, and I just decided I'm not going to worry. I'm just not going to worry about this. I mean, I did what I needed to do as far as contacting the lender and all of that jazz, but things just weren't working out because I didn't have a job. I mean, what do you tell your mortgage company? You can't say, oh, well, I'll send the payment, because you don't have the money. I mean, I got to a place where I was cleaning for people at my church. I'm like doing house cleaning for people at my church. And I remember at one point cleaning someone's toilet and being so thrilled to do it. Being really thrilled to do it. It felt like I was free, because I had control of my time. I could choose who I was working with. Nice. I could choose when I was working. It just felt really, really free to find joy in something like cleaning toilets. Here I am, this person who had been so proud of being bank management and, using this business management degree and all that jazz, but cleaning that toilet was by far a more gratifying experience than working at the bank. And it was little things like that that shifted my mindset. Gratitude was probably my biggest takeaway from all of this. So the house is in foreclosure. I'm piecing together, little bits of money here and there. But all the while, like, my opportunities never stopped. I still got to go to the Abraham seminar. I was still going to Disneyland with friends. I was still doing amazing things and having a really good time. And I realized how fortunate I was, and that things really didn't have to be as hard as they had been. It was a struggle to get up and go to work every day, and I hated it. I had to coach my mind every single day to go in there and do that. And so to now be in a place where I could just choose. I can choose. And most importantly, I get to choose how I wanted to feel. Even if I didn't know what I was going to be doing, I knew how I wanted to feel. So the thing with the house in foreclosure, that was a game changer, girl. Huge game changer for me, because I was frightened initially. And then I was at church one Sunday and I'm crying on somebody's shoulder, and he stopped and he's like, yeah, it sucks sometimes. And it was like that realization was like, yeah, it does suck sometimes, but that's okay. But that's okay, because it may not always suck. It has sucked before, and it hasn't sucked before. So it won't suck again at some other point.
Right. What I love is it sounds like you really took control of a situation that felt out of control, but because you were able to connect to your own power. I mean, it sounds like, okay, the job went away, the boyfriend went away, but you were gifted freedom.
Oh yeah. Oh.
And you said it perfectly. You coached your mind. You had already been in that mindset of, I don't like this job. And so it sounds like you were already sort of doing some things mentally. And then when that shift took place, you really got a lot of time and opportunities to really practice it. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I felt like, all in all, it felt like I didn't really know how to make that decision for myself. I didn't know how to leave my good job. I had been told all my life to get a good job, go to college, get a degree, get a good job. And that's what I did. And I had no idea how to leave my good job. That wasn't really good. I mean, it hurt every day to do that. They wanted me to do things that were outside of my sense of morality. And it hurt to have to do those things in order to keep that good job. So to be in this position now where I no longer had that job, it felt like the universe freed me up.
Nice.
To not have to do that anymore. I felt honestly like I all of a sudden was given a golden ticket to just completely reformulate who I wanted to be. I was the mold all of a sudden. I had the mold. I got to choose what I was going to do next. I didn't have anybody who I was responsible for caring. I didn't have to care for any kids.
Right.
There was nobody depending on me. I really had an opportunity to do whatever it is I wanted to do. And so when the house was in foreclosure, initially I fought it. I fought it tooth and nail, because that's what you do. You got to protect where you live. So I'm on the phone. I'm calling people. I'm trying to work things out. I'm struggling to try and work this out. I'm losing sleep trying to work this out until one day I said, I'm going to give myself a break. I'm going to give myself 7 days. I'll never forget it. It was on a Sunday. I said, I'm giving myself 7 days to not think about this, to just trust that everything is working out. And after 7 days, if I still feel like freaking out, then I'll freak out. But that 7 days, I literally played. I mean, I went to amusement parks. I went to movies, had great dinners with people because everybody wanted to take me out to eat during that time. Beautiful. I just had a great time. And by the time that next Sunday rolled around, I had forgotten that I'd given myself 7 days. It just turned into 14 and 21. And before you knew it, the mortgage companies are calling me looking for solutions. They're calling me looking for solutions, right?
Yes.
So the mortgage company actually sold it to another one. And when I called the new one, they said, oh, well, yeah, we don't have a foreclosure for you yet. We just got the paperwork. We need a little time to work it out. Okay. Thank you.
Wow.
Right. So in the interim, while they're working it out, tragedy struck. As you know, my sister was murdered in a domestic violence situation. And she had two little babies. They were 2.5 and 5 months. And I mean, there was nothing to think about in that. Obviously, for me, it was obvious for me that I was going to take care of these children. I didn't know how, but I didn't feel like I needed to know how. It just felt like that was the right thing for me to do. That was the only thing that my heart could do. So that was, of course, the biggest thing that could have ever happened in my life, becoming a mommy all over again. Surprisingly, I didn't even think about how am I going to do this. I just kept believing it's just going to work out. It's going to be just fine. It has to be. It just has to be. And so, and I forgot the part where I decided I was going to get a roommate to try and keep the mortgage together.
Okay.
And I got the roommate just, of course, by chance. I got the roommate. Someone just happened to know someone who was looking. And so it worked out beautifully. So he had been here, maybe a month when all this happened.
Wow.
I know, just huge transitions. Everything's been one huge transition after the next. And honestly, I've gotten to this place of, all right, well, let's see how this works out. Let's see what happens next. So my little nieces, there are 2 of them. They are 1 and 3 now. Yeah, life's different. It's so different having these beautiful little babies. I'm really, really grateful to have them, even though I pull my hair out from time to time, because girl children are way different than boy children. Let me just say that. Hugely different. But through it all, I just have always known, I've always reminded myself to just trust that the universe is working for me, that everything that's happening is happening for me. And even though it looks hard and sometimes it feels impossible, this is just a speed bump. This is just another turn, another twist. But even with the twists and the turns, I get to decide how I feel about it. This doesn't have to be the end of anything. Sure, I could be angry, I could be resentful, and I could also be stuck, but I'm not. So again, fast forward, life is a tailspin because I'm ripping and running, figuring things out with the children. And the new mortgage company says, hey, we're working out a solution for you. And I said, okay, well, what are you going to need from me? Because I don't have a job. And they said, nothing. Okay.
Wow.
I know. I mean, and we're talking about, there was a sale date. The house was for sale. They were going to auction it off.
So,
But not.
Well, so another thing, I don't think I've said this yet, it sounds like you really learned how to live in the flow.
Oh, for sure.
It sounds like, it sounds like you'd already been playing with that, but especially when you said you decided to just give it 7 days and you play, I know from my own experience, I've had people say, you need just have more fun. And for a long time, I did not realize the true value in having fun. I used to think, oh, that's frivolous, that's wasting time. It's not. It's actually part of how you get to where you want to go.
Yeah. And
it sounds like you really, you practiced that and you saw the benefits and things just continued to flow into place for you. And especially with your sister's story, it sounds like that was another, I'm sorry, so sorry to hear about that.
I didn't choose it. I mean, inevitably it was my choice to be the person who stepped up, but my heart would not allow it any other way.
Yeah.
You know, when that kind of thing happens, you just move.
Right.
You just move. I mean, there were people in my life who suggested that we separate the children, that my mother take one of them and I keep the other. But these children had been through enough. You know, they had enough loss there was no way that I would ever separate them. That just wouldn't happen. So all in all, I mean, everything, I really do believe that even losing the job back in 2013, I really believe that that was the setup for me to do this very well.
Wow.
I do. I mean, suffering that kind of loss, the loss that I had with the job, the loss that I had with the relationship, that it really felt like death. It felt like suffering a death. And so when I did actually suffer that death, I chose not to suffer it. Instead, I chose to recognize just the beauty that my sister is. You know, she still is that beauty for me.
Yep.
When I look at those babies, she still is that for me. When I'm in my quiet space, I still communicate with my sister.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I can identify with that. When my dad died, we were working on our relationship at the time, and then he just died. Very unexpected. I was the last person to see him alive.
Wow.
Next morning, I get a phone call that he's dead. And absolutely, I know that he's, I can still connect with him anytime. And it sounds like you were able to do that with your sister. And I wholeheartedly see her and know that she's with you and her daughters and your nieces. And such a beautiful way you moved into just taking care of those children and saying, that, I don't know, that you stepped up. I love it.
And I just said this to somebody last night. I now understand why I had a kid when I was 16 years old. I had a kid at 16, which meant I couldn't be out playing. I needed to focus. I needed to down and be what I needed to be for him. I needed to be really accustomed to missing out on stuff. My friends out having a good time and I'm in the house with my baby or at work making money to take care of my baby. So that experience in itself prepared me to be at this later stage in my life when all of my friends have children who are older. They're all older kids now. And now I have these little bitty babies and I don't have the flexibility that a lot of my friends have. So it's kind of like experiencing what I experienced back then, but with a different set of eyes. Because during that whole period of unemployment when there was no money to be out a lot of times, I learned to have fun in the house. I learned to love my home, like really love being at home. And for the children to come into a place that I love to be, that's a benefit. They feel the presence of joy in my house. They feel playful in my house. And I love that. I absolutely love that. I really feel like every experience that I've had, whether it's been wanted or unwanted, has all been for my benefit. And this is no exception. Having these children is a benefit to me. Losing my sister, which it's hard for me to even say it like that because I haven't lost my sister. I just have not lost my sister. She's very, very present. In fact, funny story. When we were planning her memorial service, my mom, she was having a hard time. I mean, this is her baby.
Right.
And she was feeling bad. And she's like, I don't even know my baby's favorite color. And she was feeling really bad about that. And she asked me if I knew. And I was like, no, I don't think we ever really talked about that. And then my mother says, I just wish there was some way to ask her. And I just said, sister, what's your favorite color? And I heard very, very clearly, gray. Like, that's not a normal favorite color. Like, most people don't choose gray as their favorite color. And I said, I just heard it's gray. And my mother goes, oh my God, it is gray. It is gray. We did have that conversation. It is gray. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
There's no reason that I can't. Why shouldn't I be able to communicate with someone who is so near and such a part of me? My sister was a huge part of me. I mean, we were together a really long time. So of course I'm still connected. It makes sense. And her girls. When my sister, when she told me that she was pregnant with my first niece, I decided I didn't need to have any more kids. Like the whole waffling on whether I wanted to have any more, that just completely went away. I didn't want any more because she was having my baby.
Mm.
And I delivered that baby. The story behind that child's birth is so symbolic of what's happened here. My sister, we were in the labor and delivery room. Is me, my mom, my sister, my brother. And that's us. That's our family and my son. He wasn't here though. So it was just us in the labor and delivery room. And my sister goes into labor. I told my brother to leave. He left. My mom and I started setting the environment. I had my mom close the blinds. I turned on some music. I started massaging my sister. And she's going through her contractions. And the nurse said, okay, let me go get the doctor. I think it might be time. She goes to get the doctor. My sister grabbed my hand and she goes, I have to push. I have to push. I said, you can't push. There's nobody here. Like, I can't help it. And I don't know whether she pushed or whatever, but the baby came out immediately. I caught the baby. Yeah. So the symbolism behind that alone, it's very clear that it's a part of my story that I'm to raise these children. I get it. I get it very clearly. So I don't feel bad about anything happening in my life. I mean, and even when I go back through the stories of my life, the things that I felt victimized about, those have all been so beneficial. And even while I was in them, I was learning beautiful things. And I was expressing love throughout those situations, which is why they didn't last. I can tell you the most miraculous stories, things that have shown up that are mind-boggling, because I've always had a way of pivoting my mindset and turning everything into a silver lining.
I can tell. I was going to comment on that. I can tell you've done that. Can you expand a little bit more? I'm trying to think how you worded it, but can you expand a little bit more on you said something about you were expressing love in those relationships, and it sounded like that's how you knew that wasn't going to be forever.
Yeah. So this domestic violence thing has been prevalent in our story for a really long time.
Okay.
At let's see, about 2000 or so, I was in an abusive relationship. And it was so shocking because I had never witnessed anything like what I was experiencing. And there was a lot of shame involved with that. You know, there was a lot of lying, trying to hide what was happening because I was the strong girl. You know, I'm the strong one. That kind of thing doesn't happen to strong girls. So I never let on. I never told anybody what was happening in my life. Instead, what I did is I didn't go home. I stayed at work long hours. I volunteered for a lot of stuff, and I ended up getting promoted. Promotion after promotion after promotion, all because I was in an abusive relationship and just didn't want to be involved in it.
What would you mind sharing? What kinds of abuse? Was it verbal, physical?
It was physical. It was physical abuse. Yeah, it was verbal and physical abuse.
Okay.
But yeah, it was so unexpected. I think that's probably the scariest part of domestic violence for me, is when I didn't know who I was. I didn't know how this was happening because this is not who I thought I was. I thought I was a lot stronger than that. I certainly thought that if anybody ever hit me, I'd walk away from them.
And so what was part of your thinking in that? Why didn't you walk away when that happened? What kept you in the relationship?
You know what? I put his pain above mine. I recognized how wounded he was. I recognized from the very, very first moment that he didn't know any other way to do this. He had no other, it came out later on that he had watched his mother in an abusive relationship. Now, of course, I know now that that's not necessarily the way to handle something like that. You know, I don't put other people's emotions and feelings ahead of my own anymore. But that was something that I obviously needed to experience in order to come to this place of knowing how to handle that type of thing. Yes, I can see your wounding and not allow it to break me. You know, not allow your wounding to put me in a dangerous position.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I had to have that experience in order to know. And then during the process, it just so happens that I was witnessing other women who were in abusive relationships. And I could tell because I saw them doing exactly what I was doing.
How long were you in that relationship?
That was a 4-year relationship.
Okay.
And about 3 of the years were abusive.
Okay.
A lot of years of asking him to leave, a lot of time trying to get away, but also trying to still be safe. Because the thing about when you're in an abusive relationship and there's a lot of threatening, and this was the kind of person who would show up at my job and that kind of thing. So you put yourself in, and because I understand my sister's plight. I kind of get why she was still there even after things went bad. It feels the most protective, especially when you have children. If this person's rage is centered in their love for me, then I'm the thing that's going to stop this rage. I'm the pill that's going to put them at some form of ease so that they don't unleash their drama on the world. And that's kind of how it felt. I felt like I was protecting not just myself, but my friends and my family just by staying. It actually felt like it was safest for me to just stay. Just let him stay until we can talk this out in such a way that he wants to leave. Because that's what I was trying to do.
Okay.
The whole time. I'm trying to get this to something cordial so that he'll just leave. He'll just go nicely rather than this thing being something really big and really ugly. And unfortunately, I wasn't getting the support from law enforcement that I needed. I mean, I would have him arrested. He'd be out the next day and he'd be at my house, that kind of thing. So it kind of felt like it was easiest to just stay. Now, I don't think that I could be in that experience now because I can smell it a mile away now.
Right.
I saw it with my sister's situation as well, but you can't make anybody do anything. Sometimes people have to go through their own things. And she was going through her own thing. I recognized that she was in an attempt to make things easier, whatever that meant for her. And so all that to say, the lessons that I learned from being in that domestic violence situation have helped me throughout the years to be compassionate for other people who are in those circumstances. And I've been able to help other people who are in it by saying, hey, I see you. I see you. And I know what you're going through because I've been there. And being that ear for people to talk to.
Was that the relationship that ended right after you lost your job?
Oh, no. No.
Okay.
That was 2000 to like 2004.
Okay.
Yeah, really long time ago. It's like a lifetime. I don't even recognize the person I was at that point. Like seriously, a lifetime ago. That's just how quickly and how much our lives change. Things that are very real for us today won't mean anything 6 months from now. That's the crazy part.
And is your sister was she your younger sister? Is she your younger sister?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but there are beautiful things that are happening around it. So many beautiful things. In fact, my church now has a children's ministry because these children came into our life.
They didn't have one before?
No. We had a very mature congregation.
Okay.
Most people were retired, and I found these people the day after my boyfriend left. In fact, he left on a Saturday. Sunday morning. Sundays used to be our day together. And I said, I'm not going to sit in this house and be depressed. I will not. I refuse. There's too much at stake. So I went online and I just started looking for some place that I could go. And I tapped in, I went inside and I asked for guidance to show me where I could go that would give me nourishment, a place where I could feel connected and loved and supported. And I found my church. And I've been there ever since. And these have been the best people ever. I mean, ever. When this thing happened with my sister, oh, Kim, they showed up with so many clothes. I had multiple strollers and everything I needed to bring those babies home. These people went out and got it. They rallied everybody they knew who had children to just pour into us. And it's really hard. I mean, it's not hard, but In fact, it's really easy to look at the pain of all of this. But the growth is in looking at the love that's come from it.
And the thing that you keep reflecting on, as you keep bringing up as you share the different stories that you've experienced, is that none of them are the end story. They are, you said earlier, a part of your story. You had the story where you were in an abusive relationship. You had the story of when you were in a job that you liked until you didn't like. You had the story of, the relationship that ended, and boom, the time that he used to fill in your life immediately was replaced with something else that now fills your life. And I love how you're doing that. You are moving through the flow, and everything feeds into the next thing. And I always say that life is a journey. Some people say that it's not a journey. But I think your stories are reflective of a journey, and there are different little pit stops on the way and different things that happen. And
sure. Yeah, you know what? I look at it as like, imagine Dorothy on the yellow brick road. But imagine that the road is not already paved, but that when she decides to go right, a brick lays. She goes left, a brick lays. That's how I see it. Accepting my sister's passing has probably been the most life-giving thing that I could have done in this. Just accepting that, first of all, whoever said that we were all going to be here until we were 80? Mm-hmm. Nobody's ever said that. Like, that's not, there are biblical scholars who say that, God promises however many years you're promised, but there's no promise. There's no promise as far as how long we're going to be here. And that it's just become so critical in my mind that I just love on every person who is in my life, because we really don't know. We don't know how much time we have. Yeah. But I was really grateful for the 32 years I had with my sister. And to know that it was all said. She knew and she knows how much I love her. There was nothing unsaid. So, and my mother said the same thing. She can be at peace because there was nothing unsaid. We've been very expressive in our love. And so the way that I can honor her most right now is by pouring that love into her children. And I do that gratefully. Because not only because people tell me, oh, you're such a blessing to those children. Those children are such a blessing to me. I didn't know who I was, Kim. I had no idea who I was and what I was doing. Mm. I had been unemployed for 2.5 years. I had just gotten a minimum wage job that I was really happy to have, by the way. When I tell you, quick sidebar about the job. So having been unemployed for as long as I was, I decided, let me start really calling in my next employer. And so I wrote this list of everything I wanted in the next employer. I didn't talk about money. I didn't write about money. I wrote about, I wanted it to be really close to home. I wanted it to be a place where the people were fun and we would like each other and want to hang out together. And there'd be a lot of food options around because I like to eat. So we had a lot of food options and we could hang out and have drinks after work. Like, these are the kind of things that I wrote on that list. And then I had an interview for a position that was had to be about 25 miles away.
Okay.
Okay. That interview went well. They offered me a job. Well, I also got a job offer the very next day from a place that was right down the street. Like, I could walk there right down the street. The first one paid more, but the second one had everything that I want, everything that was on the list. So obviously I went with the the lower paying job. And it was so much fun. I was so good at it. It was easy.
That's amazing that you were connecting with what you want in a position, and here you literally had two options, one that pays more and one that pays less, and you went with the one that pays less, but it sounds like it's giving you so many other things. Sure. Now, I think for a lot of people, and I'm even going to speak for myself at times, money tends to often be the deciding factor. Yeah. How I mean, you were already doing all that inner work. It sounds like connecting with your bliss and being in that flow and everything. But was there any other additional sort of inner work you needed to do? Anything you needed to reconcile within yourself to be able to make that decision and go for the lower paying job?
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, I had to get past the grudge match I had been having with money for years. And let me tell you, when you're a bank manager, your relationship with money is that much more different. So I had this relationship with money where, first of all, it was lacking in my personal life. I mean, I had enough to pay my bills, but I wasn't in a position where I could ever see my way completely out of debt.
Okay.
And I couldn't see, like, even having a car paid off. Like, that was something that was far-fetched.
Wow.
So, and then add to that I could be working at my desk, really busy with whatever it is I'm working with, and the cash shipment would arrive. So you have this man with a gun who comes into the branch with money in a bag. Okay. I have to stop what I'm doing. Whatever it is I'm doing, it doesn't matter who I'm talking to, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I got to stop and go deal with that man with the gun. So now we're in this little room, me and the man with the gun, and I have to get another employee to stop what they're doing because there have to be two of us. It was just really inconvenient, you know?
Wow.
And then the money was dirty and I had to count it. So I had this thing with money. And once I realized that it wasn't just that I didn't have enough, but that I was angry with money. That I actually had a lot of, not just stuff from growing up and the whole we don't have enough situation, but the stuff that I had built on my own, just the just tightness around money. And it wasn't until I learned to loosen up and just recognize that money is not any different than anything else. Like I came down to the brass tacks of, I don't pay for the air I breathe. I don't pay for that. I don't pay for the sun to get up in the morning. But these things happen, and they happen for me.
The abundance.
The abundance, exactly. So I just started recognizing the abundance, the things that were flowing automatically for me. And I started imagining money as one of those things that could happen automatically for me. Then I started thinking about all the money that I had accumulated personally over the years. I had touched a lot of money that was mine over the years, and just started thinking about it that way. Like, wow, I've always had enough. There's always been more than enough. I remember walking into the grocery store, and I had $20, and that $20 was going to have to feed me for a week. So I need to make really good decisions in this grocery store. And I made my decisions, and I came out and I had $1.37 left. And I'm like, yeah, and I have change. Yay. And someone outside the grocery store, huh?
That's impressive.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Someone outside the grocery store asked me if I had any spare change. And I said, as a matter of fact, I do. And I gave him $1.37. And it felt good to give it to him, because what that said to me is I have more than enough. I have more money than I need to use right now. And I can give from my overflow. And money just started flowing to me. All of a sudden, people would call me and say, hey, I heard you're doing some house cleaning. You want to come over and help me prep for this party? Sure. So what did that mean? Not only am I over there helping a friend get ready for her party, but then I get to stay and be at the party. How fun is that? Like, it never felt like work. It just felt like what was right. It felt like the way I'm supposed to receive. And that happened a lot. I mean, I already told you, I opened my door and there's cash on the ground. And I would celebrate, like down to the penny, I would celebrate. If I found a penny, I would go, yay, thank you. Because that money was looking for me. Other people may have walked right past it, but I saw it. It was mine. It was meant for me. That's money I didn't work for. It just showed up into my experience. There's no difference between that penny and $100 bill. which I've also had just show up into my experience. Yeah.
Marisha, you are a powerful storyteller.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I agree.
I think absolutely. I mean, you already know this, but yes, you need to write a book or 2 or 3 or whatever.
And I'm in the works. I'm absolutely in the works. I got a little bit derailed with this new chapter of my life, but
it's adding to your story, though.
Absolutely. I'm still taking notes. I'm still creating, but more than anything, I'm getting aligned with the success of this phenomenal work that's going to be beneficial to so many people.
Yes.
There are people who hear these stories because, I'm always putting things on Facebook, either on my remomming page or on the Unlock Your Magic page. Either way, I'm always jotting something down, just sharing little tidbits, and it never fails. There's always somebody in my inbox saying, oh, thank you for writing that. Oh. It means so much that you wrote that. And that's all I want to do with these stories. I recognize now that I'm having these experiences because I'm supposed to share them. I'm supposed to give this information to other people because I'm through it. I got past it. I'm no longer in an abusive relationship. I'm not even that person anymore. I've shed that skin years ago.
Can't believe how much I'm wanting to cry just talking to you today. Yeah. I had to accept earlier, okay, it's not all going to be edited out. It's fine.
No, that's actually part of it, Kim. I'm glad you just said that because that's been part of it for me. Being okay with being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Seriously, because when I did have my job, nobody ever saw emotion for me. In fact, I was in therapy for over a year, and the whole time, all she talked about was emotions, teaching me how to get in touch with my feelings. I didn't understand feelings. I don't have time for feelings. I have time for action. I have time for production. I don't have time for feelings. So we spent a whole year working on feelings. She gave me, I'll never forget this piece of paper with little happy faces and sad faces. And these are the words for this. And I'm like, okay, yeah, okay, yeah, I don't feel. I'm not feeling. I don't have time for feeling. It's like, that's really who I was. I'm just a ball of feelings. I'm a ball of feelings. I embrace my feelings. I share my feelings. And I tell complete strangers, I love you. It's the weirdest thing. That's the choice. That's the choice that we have to make right now. We can be upset about whatever's happening in the world, or we can choose to be what we want to see. I want to see love. That's all I want to see. I want to see peace. I want to see cooperation.
Yeah.
That's all we're here to do. That is all we're doing.
The more, I find that the more we are sort of, kind of constricted and have these hard, challenging situations thrust upon us, it is the perfect opportunity to say, okay, I choose it now. I choose now my own joy and what I want. It's an excellent opportunity to say, no more waiting. Now's the time. This is my life. And really connects us to how filled with life we actually are in this moment and how valuable this and every moment is, because it offers us that opportunity to choose something different. Right. And every single one of your stories represents that. And I'm so glad that you took me up on this opportunity to do this. And
I'm glad to be able to tell it. I really am. Every time I get to tell these stories, I feel really fortunate. I do. I mean, yeah, there've been a lot of really hard things, but okay. I mean, I always say, would you go to a movie that didn't have a plot twist?
Right.
That would be boring. It would be so boring if everything was la, 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 la all the time. It really would. I mean, there has to be some contrast in this to create growth. I am growing leaps and bounds. I didn't even know how to parent the way that I'm parenting now.
Wow.
I did. When I was raising my son, I was a kid. I was a kid myself. And I was really, really fortunate to have my mother, my grandmother. I had a family surrounding me. This is different. This is totally different. But I get to connect with these children in a totally different way. The 3-year-old said to me the other night, she says, "Thank you for taking such good care of me."
Oh,
Oh, that's all we ever want to hear, right?
how beautiful.
Isn't it? I mean,
Yes.
she said that, and it was because that's what was in her heart to say to me. And the baby, she'll walk over to me and hold my face and just kiss me. I couldn't pay for that. I could not pay for how that feels. So I'm just grateful to be in this position to share this with them. You know, the 3-year-old, she has some struggles. Because she witnessed so much.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that I get to guide her through this, that I get to help her to reformat this into something she can use, because this is for her. I don't know how yet. But I don't have to know how in order to trust that it's for her.
That can probably hit close to home for a lot of parents because, you know, I don't have children of my own, but I am involved with children. And even just my own experiences, I have this desire at times to want to say, no, stop, and try to redirect and control things and make sure that things happen in a certain way for them. But I can't control everything, and no parent can control everything. And what you just said is, you're right. You know that what she's experienced is going to serve her in some way. And it sounds like you're having to just sort of surrender to some of that.
That's it. In fact, I just sent a message to a friend of mine that surrender is my only resolution this year. To surrender. And I'm not surrendering to some external being or, I'm surrendering to my greatest good. I'm surrendering to my faith that everything is working out for me. That's it, and that's all. The craziest things can happen, and there's, this is working out for me too. Yeah. Let me tell you, there are days when I have felt grief heavily. Like the grief shows up, and I'm like, what is this? This is unrecognizable. And you know what I do? I just change that. I don't have time for that. I don't want to do that. My grief doesn't even really have to look like that. Instead, I'll crank up some music, and I just change my energy altogether. I dance, I find some friends to go play with, and shift that. Now, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just feel it. Sometimes I just sit on the bathroom floor and I just cry it out, because that's a part of being human too.
And that's also a part of surrendering and being in the flow. Allowing the energy to continue is to feel the emotions as they happen, and so that they can be released, so we don't stay in that space. I used to somehow think that, and I didn't even know that I thought this until I later learned all about emotions as well, but that I used to think that feeling the emotion meant that I was claiming it and that I was putting a stake in the ground and that's where I was going to stay. Yeah. And I learned it was the complete opposite. It was that as soon as you choose to say, okay, yeah, I'm feeling this right now. Okay, so let's just take a moment and feel it. 30 seconds to a minute later, it's gone.
It's the fighting it. It's the fighting against it that makes it stay.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. But that's been the case with everything that I've been experiencing. I mean, even the idea of losing my home, I faced the scariest part of it. I literally said, okay, what is the worst case scenario? Worst case scenario, I have to leave my house. Okay. Will you be homeless? No, I'll never be homeless. Okay. So what is the worst case scenario? Oh, there really isn't one. Because I know that if I did leave my house, I'll be going to another one sometime soon. I mean, that's just how it's always been. Years ago, when I left the apartment that I had with the abusive boyfriend, I left it and I was kicking and screaming. I didn't want to leave my apartment, but I had to in order to feel safe again. I had to leave it. And I went and lived in my mother's back house. She had a converted garage. I was let me tell you about the shame of living in the converted garage, girl. I'm in the converted garage, but I said, I'm going to give myself 3 years. I'm going to live here for 3 years. I'm going to repair my credit again. I'm going to save some money, and I'm going to buy a house. And I kept that goal. I'm buying a house. And now we're getting into another manifestation story. So I'm like online at night. Now I would look within my price range, whatever I thought I could afford, I would look. And it was like I would complete that assignment, that looking.
Okay.
I would take notes from that. I would email whoever I needed to email. But then once the assignment was done, I would play. Playing meant I would stretch the parameters a bit. Like, what if I were looking for $1 million house? What if I were looking for, this is what I would do. And I would just play, and I would get really excited about the floors and these beautiful homes and the countertops and the neighborhoods. And I would get really excited about those things, like, oh, there's such beautiful homes out there. And one day I was out looking at places with my realtor. We couldn't get into this one place that I didn't really want to live in anyway. It was kind of crappy.
Okay.
I didn't really want to live there, but it was within my price range.
Okay.
Drove by this other place. They had a big sign out. It looked expensive. It looked like it was something I couldn't afford, but I'm like, let me go look at it. Well, I live there now. This is where I live now. That story will be in the book.
Yes. The other thing I want to point out is that, so first off, so anyone watching this, like Marisha is giving you like literally step-by-step tips on how to manifest things. But the one of the key things I want to point out is that for anyone watching this and thinking like, well, I've been, dreaming of another home, or a better home for years now, and mine hasn't happened yet. How come it hasn't happened? Well, first off, none of us can say why. We aren't you. We don't know what's really going on there. But one thing that a lot of people tend to do, and I know you, Marisha, know this, is that when we think we're setting an intention or putting an energy out, I want this thing, a lot of times underneath it is that the knowing and feeling of, oh, but I don't have it yet. And so we're looking at what we want, but still feeling that we don't have it, feeling the lack. And it sounds like that's what you did differently. You didn't look at it with lack. You looked at it with, this is possible. I can have this. Ooh, this feels good.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if it weren't necessarily that I can have this, it was, this is beautiful. Mm-hmm. I enjoy looking at this. I enjoy seeing this. That's all. I mean, really, it was just appreciating what exists already, because the only limits on me are the ones that I set. And I know that sounds so cliche, but it's so true. Yeah. It is so, so true. Everything that I've ever achieved has been because I believed I could. That's just where it starts. You just got to believe it first. And for me, it was just about believing that these things are beautiful. Believing that whoever has these things is probably really happy with this. I hope they're really happy. Like that was one of my things. I hope they're really happy. If I saw somebody in a great car, oh, that's beautiful. I hope they love it. That kind of thing.
Appreciation and being detached. You weren't set on this is how it has to happen. You were just appreciating.
Yeah.
And putting that energy out there.
Yeah, I have become a master manifestor. And stuff shows up. There are all kinds of avenues. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. I've had complete strangers give me money just because they wanted to give me some money.
Nice.
Okay. Down to one day saying, I want some bananas. And then somebody shows up with bananas. Why not? Why not? Things don't have to be hard. They don't have to be hard. I'm telling you, the most amazing things, and it's all because I'm open. I'm open to receive. This is the kind of thing this was my regular mantra. I'm open to receive. I'm willing and open to receive. It's huge. You think of them as little things, but those steps of faith those are big. Those are really big things. We are living in what people consider really hard times. I'm not living in a hard time. I'm just not. I disengage from things that feel hard, and I keep my energy aligned with good. That's how I serve the planet, by keeping my energy aligned with good and knowing that everything is working out for our highest good.
I think the sort of default setting for a lot of people is to go into rationalizing how things are going to happen, and even if it can happen, because, well, if this other thing didn't happen, then, well, then this one other thing over here is just completely impossible. And you're proving right there that nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible. As we wrap up here, is there anything else you would like to share for anyone who may be watching this who's just heard your amazing stories today? Is there anything?
Yeah, you know what? It's really all about just being a little looser with this thing. You know, the same way, like Abraham Hicks says, worrying is using your imagination to create what you don't want. That's all that is. So if you can spend your imagination on worrying, then you owe it to yourself to spend your imagination on creating what you want.
Yeah.
Just play with it. Just be light about it. You know, I mean, even if you're at this situation, because listen, I've been in the spot with the gas turned off and all that, and had to pull back and say, okay, this is happening and it's okay. But there's a solution. Just always believe that there is a solution. Whatever it is, there is a solution. You just have to open up to letting it happen. Don't automatically go towards the obstacles or what could go wrong, but instead give yourself the luxury of thinking about what could go right.
And so I know you mentioned earlier, but will you tell us again, what are the 2 Facebook pages you have that if people want to hear more of your stories, where can they go?
Well, if they want to hear about what's happening with the kids, it's Remommying on Facebook. That's REMOMMYNING. So Remommying, because that's what I'm doing this mommy thing again. And then I'm Marisha Williams -- Unlock Your Magic.
Awesome. Okay, Marisha, thank you so much for being here today. I loved every bit of every story you shared, and I'm happy to know you and be in contact with you, honestly.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate this. This felt good. Thanks.
Good. You're welcome. Okay. Well, until next time, I'll see you online.
All right.
Okay. Bye. Okay, so for all those watching, we paused for a moment and we're back, and I'm doing something that I just think is fun. You may have seen it in some of the other interviews, but I asked Marisha if she would like a message, and I asked her to pick a number 1 through 6. She chose 4, and then I asked her to choose a number 1 through 27, and she chose 17. And so that's where we are right now. And so just a moment. We are not done yet.
This is fun.
Thank you. I think it's fun too. Okay, now choose 1 through 7.
Including 7? Because I'm going with 7.
Okay, so now we're almost done. Tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Okay, so this is why I love doing this. So now I'm going to tell you what we were doing. Okay, so sorry. Okay, so
okay.
I have.
Why are you making me laugh?
I have next to me a stack of books that I love and I think have just great information and inspiration and messages. So a series of books, but they're all inspirational. The book that you chose, which was number 4, is You Are a Badass.
I love it. Yes.
Okay, then you chose chapter 17, which is It's So Easy Once You Figure Out It Isn't Hard. Then, yes, so the 7th page, it was actually 2-sided. So, but anyway, I was flipping the pages and spinning my finger as you were, as I was waiting for you to say stop. Mm-hmm. And when you said stop, it was on the back side. So it's the very, very end of the chapter. And it's in this section that's titled Sidestep the Spiral. And the very last paragraph is where my finger went. And so let's read this. So it says, feel sad, but don't blow it up into some huge drama.
Wow.
If something negative happens in your life, feel it, learn from it, let it go, and get back to focusing on the life you're excited to live.
That's what I said. I love it.
So, yeah.
That's like the perfect punctuation to this. That's what I said. Yeah.
You know, I've been calling this, you know, do you want a message? But it's really more so, I don't know, connecting with the universe so they can...
It's like confirmation.
Mm-hmm. So I think one of the biggest messages, here is your message. You are a badass. That is Marisha's message.
I feel pretty badass. I do. I feel it, man. I do.
So anyway, okay.
Awesome.
That's the end of that. But okay, Marisha, this was wonderful. I'm so glad we did this. And I'm glad to see that, you know, you're on this journey of getting your stories out there, because there's total value in that. And, you know, I mean, like I said at the beginning of this, I'm doing this, you know, of course for my own reasons, but also because I see the value in getting to be able to share other people's stories so that other people can hear from them as well. Mm-hmm. And I've also just gained value myself from hearing about your stories. Mm-hmm. And so, anyway, so this was very powerful for me, and I'm just so grateful. And
you know, just so you know, everything I do is selfish, because I get value from you getting value. So there you go. I'm a badass.
Well, this was selfish for me, because I was like, I want to talk to more people.
Who can be the most selfish? I'm more selfish.
Well, you know, well.
Not a hair toss.
Okay. And
I'll tell you about the California girls.